Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We are learning Mishna Yevamos, Parak Tesvav, chapter 15, Mishnah Yud, Mishnah 10. Okay, so the case starts off again with a husband and wife who are childless, and they go overseas. And not only are they childless, but as far as that, but when they leave, her husband is brotherless too, which means that as they are leaving, the assumed status of this woman is that if her husband dies without children, there will not be yibum because there's no brother to do yibum. So this is what happens. She goes she goes to a far off country. She comes back and she says, "Nitin li yavim b'dinas hayam." Mazel tov. I had a brother-in-law in that foreign country. When we went far away, my mother-in-law was with us and father-in-law, and she had a child. My husband got a brother while we were in this distant land. But then she says, Amra Meis Baili, she says, my husband died, Vachach Meis Yevami, and then my Yavim, my husband's brother died. Yevami Vachach Baili, or first, my brother-in-law died, and then afterwards my husband died. Now, when she goes ahead and she says that the Yavim, her brother-in-law died, whether he died before the husband or after the husband, at the end of the day, there's no brother. And if there's no brother, there's no yibum. So even though there's no children here, she is coming and letting us know that although there was a brother-in-law that was born, the brother-in-law died. Says, and therefore I don't need yibum. I'm free to marry anybody I want without anything. So Mishna says the Mishna and the Medes, she's believed. She's believed because, as we've been having until now, the only reason, if she would have shown up and she would have just said, my husband died, that's all she would have said. Then we would have allowed her to remarry and wouldn't have been worried about any yibum, because as far as we know, there's no brother. So as far as we know, there's no brother, and she's believed to say my husband died, she's free to go. She's free to marry. But now she's the one who brings up the fact that there was at a certain point of time a brother to my husband. And she's the one who's now creating some kind of a doubt or some kind of a question. Well, maybe there is a mitzvah yibum here. And therefore we say, as we've been saying previously, if she's the one who creates the whole question, without her we wouldn't have a question. She's the one who creates the question. She's believed to say there is no question. She is still following, she's working with the assumed status that she had until now, which was that there was no yibum because there was no brother. And being that her testimony doesn't go against that, she is believed to say that the brother-in-law died and she is not bound to anybody for yibum. That's the first part of the Mishnah. The Mishnah says like this. Different case. In this case, she, her husband, and his brother, her potential Yavim, went to Medina Sayyam. All right? In that state, in that situation, what was her assumed status? Her assumed status was that if there are no children, if there will be no children, and her husband dies, there will be Yibum because there's a brother-in-law around. Now, she comes back and she says, Amra, she says, Meis Baili, V'achach Meis Yevami. My husband died, and afterwards, my Yavim died. Yevami V'achach Baili, or she says, my Yavim died first, and then my husband. Either way, she's trying to say that there is no Yibum. But now she's going against the assumed status that she had when she left us. When she left us, she left with a brother-in-law. So therefore, her assumed status was that she will be bound to Yibum. And now she's trying to say she's not bound to Yibum. And in a menace, she's not believed. She's not believed to say that her brother-in-law died because could be she's lying. We can't rely just on her testimony to say, we can rely on her testimony to say her husband died, but we can't rely on her testimony to say that her Yavim died. Because of the fact that, as we said yesterday, she may despise him and not have any interest whatsoever to have any kind of connection to him for Yibum. And therefore, that part of the story, that her brother-in-law died, may not be true. And therefore, we cannot believe her about that. And the Mishnah continues. A woman is not relieved to say, my brother-in-law died, my husband's brother died, that she should be able to marry without needing chalitza, or not having any mitzvah, any yibum bond. She's not believed to say that. She's believed to say her husband died, but she's not believed to say that her husband's brother died, so that she should not be bound for yibum. Okay, nor may she say the next thing. Nor may she say, my sister died, so that she could enter his house. We know that there is a prohibition, serious prohibition, to marry your wife's sister. But if the wife died then you may marry her sister. So this woman is coming forth and she's saying, my sister died. And why is she saying her sister died? Because she's trying to say that she can now marry her brother-in-law. Says the Mishnah, she's not believed to say that. She's believed to say that her husband died, but she's not believed to say that her sister died. In that situation where she's talking about her sister, basically the Chachamim gave her, we believed her to say her husband died so that she can remarry, because otherwise she can't remarry. But in the case here where she's trying to say, number one, she's trying to say, the first case is she's trying to say, she's trying to say my brother-in-law died, there's no yibum. That she's not believed to say, as we said before. Here she's trying to say, I want to marry my brother-in-law because my sister died. That's very nice, but who says you got to marry your brother-in-law? Go marry somebody else. In the situation where it's a question of saying is the husband around or not, if the husband is still alive, she's stuck. There, the Chachamim said we will accept her testimony. But for other things that aren't that necessary, aren't that needed, they didn't believe her, and therefore, and again, just to believe her because why not believe her? She can't be believed to say that the prohibition of marrying one's sister is off. Maybe she likes this guy, maybe she wants to marry him, and she's not being truthful. So therefore, we say that she cannot say, my sister died, so that she'll be able, as the Mishnah says, to enter his house, which means to marry her brother-in-law. Now, next. Nor can a man be believed to say, my brother died, so that he could be Yibam on his wife. Right? He wants to say, my brother died. For what purposes? Says that there should be Yibam. No, there's no belief to do that. Basically, if there's no mitzvah here of Yibam, it's a very serious prohibition. It's an erva. At the same time, there's no reason to give him belief. There's nothing that makes him stuck in any way that we should have to give him the credence. Thank you. That we should be able to accept what he says for what he wants to say it for, and therefore a husband is not believed to say my brother died, so that he should be able to perform yibum on his wife. Nor can he say my wife died, so he should be able to marry her sister. Again, in all these cases, we need two witnesses, as we typically would need, in order to establish there's no more prohibition. But just based on the testimony of these one people, we're in situations where it's really not necessary to have to give them special belief in what they're saying, because, again, only by a woman who, if her husband is still alive, she's stuck. That is where we gave her the belief, or other people the belief, to go in and to say that the person died, that the husband died. But in this situation, we don't do that. In all the situations mentioned until here, we don't say that we're going to go ahead and believe the one person regarding what they're saying. So as we say, because of the fact that, again, in all these cases, there is no special reason or need to have to believe them, because in all these cases, these people can marry somebody else, and therefore, we say that the Chacham did not give them the ability to believe in what they're testifying regarding, and you need two witnesses in order to be able to change the situation to allow all these things to take place. Okay. The Chofetz Chaim says one should know the rechilas nikra, it's considered rechilas. Even if he didn't say it in front of the person it's relevant to. Kagoin, for instance. One who says in front of his friend, this is what I heard Reuven said about Shimon. So what happens? So you didn't tell, it's not like you went over to, Reuven said something about Shimon. You didn't go back to Shimon and say Reuven said this. You mentioned to somebody else, a third party, this is what I heard about Reuven, that he said this about Shimon. So you're not telling it to the person that it was spoken about. What's the problem? The problem is that by you telling somebody what Reuven said about Shimon, it's going to spread. And when it spreads, it can now cause friction between Reuven, who spoke about Shimon, and Shimon. ולצורך להיזהר מלספר כזה אפילו מירצה לחזר לחבר שלגלס הסיפור הזה לשום אדם. Also, you have to refrain from doing this, even if you tell the person who you heard Reuven, I heard Reuven said this about Shimon, and you're telling it to Levi, and you tell Levi, don't say it over. Don't tell anybody about it. Still doesn't help for you to say it. Because even if you know that he will believe him, you know he will listen to what you're saying. He's not going to spread it. Because at the end of the day, most of the time, when the story is being told, you're going to be hearing something bad on Reuben or on Shimon. Meaning, you say Reuben said this about Shimon. All right, that means you're probably going to say something flattering about Shimon. So that means that now Levi heard something not flattering about Shimon. That's lashon hara. Or the fact that Reuben said something about Shimon. That's also lashon hara. At the end of the day, it may not technically be rechilas, but at the end of the day, saying this over is going to be saying something negative about someone, whether it's the person who's speaking or the person who's spoken about. All the more so it's forbidden to tell a person what someone said about his relative. You know, so-and-so said this about your cousin. That already is more of a problem. The teva adam liyes meitzer bazev mikri, because that person is going to feel bad. When he hears that Reuven spoke badly about his cousin, he's going to be upset about it. That's going to bother him. And if that causes him some kind of a suffering, that causes a bad negative feeling on his part, then that means he spoke rechilas. So it comes out that even though you're not telling Shimon what Reuven said about him, but by telling Levi, who's Shimon's cousin or brother or whatever it may be, you're causing suffering to the person you're saying it to. And therefore, in that case, that's also rechilas to say what someone else did to someone else. Now, Shimon. Now, but if let's say, why are you telling Levi about what Reuven said about Shimon? It's because you want Levi to go and rebuke Reuven for what he did. That was something we discussed previously, and that has a number of conditions to be met, but then potentially what you're doing is not rechilas, because you're doing it for constructive purpose. You're trying to get Levi to correct Reuven for what he said about Shimon. Have a wonderful day.